What's the show? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Happy Friday. It is officially race week. We just had some of the free practices going on. And I will say, Carlos Sainz, man, I'm impressed. I am very, very impressed with Carlos Sainz. I think he finished P1, P2. I think P2 in regards to winning fastest lap times. Man. Okay. Well, he looks good. He looks very, very good. It's not a surprise. We know how good Carlos Sainz is in general, but to come to Williams and so far so early look this good. I mean, I'm impressed. Hopefully that leads into qualifying and that leads into a good race in general. But looking forward to that. Should be going to an absolute great one. But today we are finna check out some of the rules that happened in the off season getting applied to this year. We already know about one in regards to the cursing in F1. You can't curse. We'll see how that works, especially with Max Verstappen in game. Opening race, Aussie land. We'll see. We will see how many drivers don't curse on the radio. As always, shout out to Bro did make the video. All credit goes to him big time. And without further ado, let's just start. Let's just get. As always, don't forget to like the video and sub as well. Looking forward to the race this weekend. Don't forget to like the video, sub as well. Again, it's going to be a great season of F1. Let's get it.
Formula One is set to see massive changes for the 2025 season, and it looks like the campaign that was brewing to be quite competitive is going to receive an interesting touch by the governing body as well, with changes coming to the DRS system as well as the driver cooling. Will we see some massive shakeups in the 2025 title fight, and if so, which team would use the most out of it? One of the greatest anticipations right now is the beginning of the 2025 season, and right now it looks like the FIA has done something to make that even more interesting, which is to spice things up by changing the rules for the 2025 season. The governing body, amid all of the criticism that it's recently received, has applied changes, with the most important one being on the driver cooling and the application of the DRS. On top of that, 2026 has seen some changes as well, but we'll get to that later in the video. The meeting that saw these changes being voted for happened in Rwanda during the FIA's World Motorsport Council, and the expected inclusion of driver cooling, which would apply when the temperatures at races exceed a certain level, as well as the stricter rules for the DRS, will debut from 2025 onwards. According to the new rules, once the governing body's official weather radar predicts temperatures would go over 30.5 degrees Celsius, or the race director calls it before the beginning of the race, a heat hazard will be declared. What this would mean is that teams would have to equip the drivers with their cooling systems, but it doesn't come without its own consequences. While the feeling of the drivers would improve significantly, the FIA had to compensate in another field. They had to raise the minimum weight of the car by an additional 5 kilos as a result for the full weekend in order to meet the criteria that was present before the rules were introduced. And when it comes to promoting racing, the FIA of course never sits still, and there are now slot gaps for the rear wing between the two modes of the DRS that have seen changes, with the minimum gap being reduced presumably to cover any attempts to replicate what has been arguably the most controversial DRS trick in 2024.
Am I the only one not really too upset about the cars getting a tad bit heavier in regards to the cooling system? Like, he mentioned about the heat and 35 degrees Celsius and all. Obviously, if you're gonna add in a cooling system, like a specific component of it, so it's gonna make the car heavier. But I do know heavier cars aren't really good in regards to stuff like that. So it'll be interesting to see how these drivers, work with that, how they try to fix into your car, try to make it as lightweight as possible. But I'm not really mad about the cooling system. I don't want, I ain't trying to watch the race and the F1 driver starts overheating. You know what I mean? I ain't trying to see that. We ain't trying to see that. And it's not really a fun thing to be witnessing.
McLaren's innovation. After going through a massive research process in the current season, the FIA didn't declare the trick to be illegal, but they did give McLaren a command to change their rear wing until it's further investigated. Well, here are the results of that investigation. The slot that opened marginally on the straights to reduce the drag when being loaded with high speeds saw the FIA implement a change in which the minimum gap has shrunk from 10 to 15 millimetres to 9.4 to 13 millimetres. And with the DRS open, the upper boundary saw itself saved and remained at 85 millimetres. And given the fact that the drag reduction system is quite a powerful tool for overtaking,
smaller
the
DRS.
FIA has also put a lot of attention on the DRS modes, and from 2025 onwards there must be only 2 positions of it, as well as the fact that the ending of the application of the DRS must return the wing exactly as defined to its initial mode. These 2 changes are going to have quite a lot of impact, and overtaking becoming increasingly harder because with the gap slots being reduced, it means that the slot itself won't shed as much drag as possible, and the gaps of 20 to 30 kilometers an hour advantage when having the rear wing open might now be in the past. That is, of course, something we'd have to wait for the season to start and then see some competitive racing before we can draw any conclusions as to whether these changes have worked.
Less
but one thing
overtakes?
is for certain, the governing body stood its ground when it came to the DRS trick of McLaren, which might give us a very interesting verdict of the 2024 season. Was the car illegal in certain areas? To be able to defend so much for so long on the Baku straight, which is what we saw happening between Piastri and Leclerc, raised a lot of questions when it comes to whether or not the MCL 38 was fully under the regulations, or had it found a loophole somewhere. But that is going to be in the past from 2025 onwards.
Dang.
And with the FIA being super focused on making racing very close, 2026 hasn't remained untouched either. The regulations governing the application of active aerodynamics have also been fully clarified in the council in Rwanda, along with the dimensions of the floor body. And of course, the active aero in and of itself is quite a controversial system that the drivers and the team bosses are very afraid of in terms of how it will affect racing. But the FIA might have helped them a bit in finding a conclusion as to in which direction the teams should build their cars. The active aero rules now fully clarify that the front wing may have 2 affected flaps from the active aero, and they are required to enter 2 different modes, one for when the car is cornering and one for when it's speeding on the straight line. The situation was already discussed that the car would need a different aero mode when being on different parts of the track, and in order to make this happen, the FIA has included physical stops to prevent the wing elements from rotating more than what is required. And this is not everything. The renders that were released from the governing body earlier state that
I don't care. This is some very like techie nerd crap. But hey, I'm a nerd, so I like it. I like it. I like it. I like it. Like, I guess the front wing it's changing. I guess I'm a tad bit confused on that because, you know, the whole, like, when it comes up to like specific components about F1, like in regards to like the car, you know, the DRS, the aerodynamics, your boy struggles. Your boy struggles at times. Do I find it interesting? Yes, very, very interesting. But do I completely like understand it from like 10 out of 10? No. But I'm also interested in, you know, learning about it, seeing about it, see how like it like affects cars and all. Listen, we come here for the races. That's all I care about. We come here for the races.
Small winglets may now be applied to the outside of the front wing end plates. The front wing is not the only part of the 2026 regulations that has undergone changes. The rear wing regulations have also changed. Before the council held its ground in Rwanda, it had previously mandated that the teams must use 3 elements to form the rear wing. There has been a small change in the wording that allows the team to use fewer elements, as it now stands as up to 3. This means that the team can use a 2-element rear wing like they did until now, which would give them a better understanding of the airflow and the work concept of the rear wing of the car, which also changes the active aerodynamics in terms of fitting both 2 and 3-element wings, where all of the elements apart from the bottom main plane can be rotated completed. The floor has seen some changes as well, as its scope has been opened and the sidewall has been detailed along with a winglet and fence bodywork to overall increase the amount of downforce that these cars can generate. This was one of the main concerns. Shedding downforce might have made the cars too slow, and the new changes for 2026 are going to reassure the team principals that while we are entering a new era, some of the principles, even though they are unique, will give them a memory of the era that we are going through in order to implement effective solutions on the cars. The bodywork around the wheels saw the deflectors and the debris guard being added, with a revised version of the wheel drum as well. So all in all, the process of making the cars look and act more competitive is being improved by the day.
Good.
This
That's
is
good.
done with one sole purpose: to compact the grid even further. And while the financial discrepancy between the top and bottom teams will always see the top dogs investing a lot more money in making their cars far more competitive than the rest of the track, it is still a move in the right direction. All of this comes at the perfect time because the FIA has been scrutinised a lot
Do we still
for the
got
way
the
that
salary
they have
cap?
been leading the sport, with some of the latest chatter surrounding having permanent stewards to whom the drivers and the team bosses can complain regarding certain decisions. The president, Ben Sulayem, said that he is all for this idea, but it's quite impossible to be implemented because the drivers would have to pay out of their own pockets, which puts even more backlash on the
No.
governing body in terms of where they're spending all of the money they are receiving and whether or not they're actually putting it to the right purpose. To put things into perspective, what Ben Sulayem is asking is equivalent to a situation in which you're about to get sued and the government would ask you to pay for a judge to give you the sentence, which is quite paradoxical when you think about it. With all this in mind, do you think that the latest changes for 2025 and 2026 are going to make racing even more interesting? And more importantly, do you think that when the new era starts, the FIA and F1 will avoid a scenario in which one team will dominate the rest and it would take a couple of...
I think it's gonna take a while for it to like get used to everybody. Like obviously when you add new changes, especially in F1, it's not always a good thing, but it's not always a bad thing. I think it can go either way. But to see him trying to like improve the competitiveness in F1, I'm all for that. The only part I'm not really happy about is the whole DRS thing. I like making it shorter, which is gonna make it hard for like overtakes and all. Like we already have certain tracks in F1 which you barely see any overtakes, and the race is just becoming just a freaking snore fest. Like, I'm not trying to see that. I don't think a lot of F1 drivers are trying to see that. Fans in general trying to see that. So that's my only complaint. In regards to like the aerodynamics, like the front wing, I do see like the 3 clips. I do see that now. Um, that's pretty cool. I'm not like too knowledgeable about that, so I'm not really gonna speak much about that. But it's pretty cool. I think like I said, once we get a few races in, obviously it's gonna be like cars who do like upgrades, and like they change a few things and all. Always happens during the season, especially like the summer break. So we're gonna see how it works, but I think it all starts this Sunday, Aussie land, see how it goes, and we will go from there. So anyway, hope you guys did enjoy the video. You guys let me know what rule changes you guys are looking forward to for this upcoming F1 season. Don't forget to like the video, sub as well. See you guys soon. Peace.